Okay, so we're going to take a look today, guys, at multiplying fractions. So what I need us to do right away, put the date in the top right corner. Today's September 6th. Please put that date in the top right corner. All right. Now, when we were adding and subtracting fractions, what did we need in order to add or subtract those fractions? What had to happen? Absolutely. We needed a common denominator. Okay? We did a whole bunch of work to get a common denominator, and then we added or subtracted the numerators. Okay? Then we simplified, did whatever we need to do there. However, for multiplying, it's actually a whole lot simpler. For multiplying fractions, we do not need a common denominator. The only thing we need to do to multiply fractions is multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. Okay, that's it. It's as simple as that. Okay, but there is one more thing that we always want to do with our fractions at the very end. Not in the middle of the problem, but at the very end, there's one more thing that we always want to do. Simplify. Okay, we always want our answer given in lowest terms. Now remember, if you get an improper fraction for just a numerical expression, that's fine. For me, you can leave it as an improper fraction. When do we have to turn it back to a mixed number, though? When do I insist on that? Joe? When it's a story problem. What else do we need when it's a story problem? Very good. Complete sentence answer. If the question is asked with a complete sentence, you have to answer it with a complete sentence. Okay, now there is one catch. Okay, this year we start talking about negatives. Okay? Now, when we were adding and subtracting, what tool did we use to help us with those negatives? To help us know whether the answer was positive or negative? Samir, what did we use? We used the number line. Okay? Now, multiplication can be represented on a number line as well. But there's a very, very simple trick that we can use for multiplying with negatives. And it's really, really simple. It goes like this. If we have the same signs, meaning the two numbers that we're multiplying together are either both positive or they're both negative. If they have the same sign, our product is positive. Okay, it doesn't matter if they're both positive or both negative. If they have the same signs, the product is going to be positive, guaranteed. So what do you think is going to happen if they have different signs? Nort? The product's going to be negative. Now, guys, if they're the same, it doesn't matter if they're both positive or both negative. That's not important at all. They're the same, so your product's going to be positive. If they're different, it doesn't matter which one's positive, which one's negative. First, last, bigger number, smaller number, doesn't matter at all. The only important part is that they're different. If they're different, if the signs are different, the product's going to be negative. Okay? So, let's take a look at these. Okay? And I like to look at the signs first. So when I see 3/10 times 2/3, I'm not seeing the numbers right away. The first thing that I notice is that these are both positive. Okay? They have the same sign. So I like to make a little note. They have the same sign, which means my product is positive. Okay? Greater than 0 means positive. Think about a number line. Okay, so imagine a number line, 0 right in the middle. Okay, everything greater than 0 is over here on the right. What kind of numbers are over here on the right? On the right side? Positive. Okay, on the right side, greater than 0, positive numbers. So instead of writing out the word positive, we can just say greater than 0. Okay, now, I know that it's going to be positive, Now I can look at these numbers. Now we said we can multiply straight across. So up top, the numerators, 3 times 2 gives me 6. The denominators, 10 times 3 gives me 30. And we said they have the same sign, so it's going to be positive. Now we do want to make sure that we simplify as much as we can. So we look for something that divides both 6 and 30. Now we've got a couple of different options, but I'm going to pick the largest one, the greatest one, 6. 6 divided by 6 gives me 1. 30 divided by 6 gives me 5. So I end up with positive 1/5. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. I'm going to start out the exact same way. Before I even look at the numbers, I recognize that I'm multiplying, and I want to look at the signs. Okay, so I have a positive times a negative. The signs are different. Okay, and we said if they have different signs, our product is negative, less than 0. The same way greater than 0 is positive, less than 0 is going to be negative. Okay, so it's a shorthand. It's a way that we can write the word negative without writing all those letters, just less than 0. So I know that after I multiply these out, my answer is going to be negative. Now I'm going to hold on to that, and I'm going to look at the numbers now. Now to multiply fractions, we said multiply straight across. The numerator times numerator. 5 times 4, I got 20. 2 times 15, I get 30. Now don't forget, we said the product is going to be negative. Okay, but we do need to reduce. So we're trying to look for something that divides both 20 and 30. 10. They're both divisible by 10. Okay, Mitch, what is 20 divided by 10? Okay, how about 30 divided by 10? Good. Now, don't forget, our product is negative. Even if we simplify it, it's still negative 2/3. Okay? Okay, let's take a look at number 3. Before I look at the numbers, I recognize that I'm multiplying. I want to look at the sign. So I look at those two signs. Are they the same sign or are they two different signs? They are the same sign. It doesn't matter that they're both negative. The important thing is that they're the same. And if they have the same sign, what does that mean about my product? Still you. Very good. It's past the 0. It's positive. They have the same sign. The product's going to be positive. So I'll hold on to that. I'll keep that in mind. And now I will look at the numbers. Okay. So now we look at the numbers. We want to multiply fractions straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. Okay, so Shane, can you multiply up top for me, please? Good? Very good. Now we said that's going to be positive. So it's a positive 12/35. Now what do we always want to do with our fractions? What do we always need to do at the end? Simplify. So is there anything that divides both 12 and 35? No. So 12/35 is our final answer here. Okay, I'm going to take a quick time out for questions. Okay, so let's take a look now at number 4. Okay, number 4, I have negative 8/3 times a half. Now before I think about those numbers, what are we going to consider first? We consider before we look at those numbers. What have we been looking at? Very good. We've been looking at the signs. Positive, negative. Are they the same or are they different? Well, are these the same or are they different? They're different. So what does that mean about the product? It is going to be negative. Okay, so I'll hold on to that. I'll keep that in mind. And now I'll do the actual multiplication. Okay, so how do we multiply? how do we multiply fractions? Straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So do that for us, please. Okay? And remember, our product is going to be negative. Okay? So I have negative 8/6. However, what do we always have to do with our final answers? Simplify. So I want something that divides both 8 and 6. Can you think of anything? 2. Okay? And if I divide those both by 2, Liv, what does this simplify to? Sorry? You're really, really close, but you're missing something super important. Negative 4/3. Now, if this were a story problem, what would we have to do? What would we have to do, Alyssa? We'd have to write a complete sentence answer, and what else? We'd have to make that a mixed number. What would that mixed number be? 1 1/3, except negative 1 1/3. Very good. Excellent, guys. All right, I tell you what. We're only going to do one of the next 2 questions. Okay, and I'm going to let you pick. So let's see a show of hands. I'll give you a couple seconds to look at them, 5 and 6. Okay, there's your couple seconds. Let me see a show of hands for who would prefer to do number 5. Okay, who wants to do number 6? 6 have it. All right, so let's look at number 6. What's the first thing I'm going to think about on number 6? First thing I'm going to think about before anything else. Help them out. And? Which one is it? You said both. They are the same. They're both negative. Okay? Negative and a negative. If they have the same sign, the product is positive. Okay, guys? And the reason for that's really simple. Think about what negative means. It means opposite. So if I have the opposite of a negative, what would that be? It would be positive. Okay? But if I have the opposite of a positive, what would that be? Negative. Okay? So what it comes down to is, are they the same sign or are they different signs? Okay? So they are the same sign, so the product is going to be positive. But there's a small problem here. How do I multiply a fraction times an integer? What am I going to have to do here, Shane? Very good. Put the 4 over 1. Okay, remember that bar, that fraction bar means divide. Okay, so if I divide negative 4 by 1, it stays the same. It looks different, but it's still equal to the same thing. All right, now let's multiply these. Mara, let's multiply. Yeah, you. Well, how do we multiply fractions? Let's say right here. Multiply straight across. So let's multiply straight across here. Okay, which gives us? Okay. Very good. Okay, now keep in mind we said that they have the same sign, so our product's going to be positive. Now I have 12/4, but we need to reduce. We always need to reduce. So can you reduce that for me, please? Not 3/4. Get the right idea. Give them a hint. Okay. We need to divide numerator and denominator by 4. Now you did that up top, but I think you forgot to do it in the denominator. Okay, so we get 3 over 1. But we can actually do just a little bit better than that. Come here. We can make it just 3. Just an integer 3. Good. Okay, good job on that one, guys. Really good. All right. So when we multiply fractions, the first thing that we look at is the sign. Is it going to be positive or negative? The way we know that is, do the factors have the same signs or different signs? If they have the same sign, what does that mean about our product? It is going to be positive. And if they have different signs, everybody, the answer will be great. Okay, then we're going to multiply the numbers. How do we multiply fractions? Straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. But what has to happen at the end? No matter what, simplify if we can. Okay? All right. Let's take a look. Let's skip ahead and let's look at number 8. Okay, now the key to any story problem is reading that story 3 times, at least 3 times, sometimes more. Okay, so let's read through this one time. Go ahead. Read right into here, please. Yep.
Mike, Dan, and John went on a whitewater rafting trip. They spent a total of 6 3/4 hours on the river on Saturday. 2/3 of the time was spent paddling, and the rest was spent on a couple of short breaks. What was the combined length of their breaks?
All right, very good. Thank you. So what happens here? Because I got these guys rafting. Now, some of the time they spend on the raft paddling. Some of the time they spend on a break. So they say 2/3 of the time was spent paddling. Okay, so green for go. Okay, and then the rest of the time they spent taking breaks. So red for stop. Now, they didn't take a big long break at the end. They took a bunch of short breaks in the middle. Okay, but we're just going to lump all the breaks together at the end and all the paddling together at the beginning. Okay? So this is what the trip looks like. Now keep in mind, we're not talking about any distances that they've gone. It's all about time. The whole thing is time. Okay, so let's go back and let's read it this second time. Let's think about some numbers. So Mike, Dan, and John went on a whitewater rafting trip. They spent a total of 6 3/4 hours on the river on Saturday. 2/3 of the time was spent paddling, and the rest was spent on a couple of short breaks. What was the combined length of the breaks? So we're trying to find out how long they spent taking breaks. That's what we're looking for. Okay, well, they spent 2/3 of the time paddling, which means how much of the time was spent stopping on those breaks? Samir? 1/3. Okay, if they spent 2/3 of the time paddling, that leaves 1 more third to make up the whole thing. So the breaks were 1/3 of the total time. Okay, so Mike, Dan, and John, they went on a whitewater rafting trip. They spent a total of 6 3/4 hours on the river on Saturday. 2/3 of the time they spent paddling, and the rest was on short breaks. What was the combined length of their breaks? So what I want to know is 1/3 of the total time. Now, guys, we'll make a big deal of this later on this year. But this word of, anytime you see the word of paired with a fraction, a decimal, or a percent, it means multiply. And we'll make a big deal about this later on, but for right now, trust me, that 1/3 of the total time means we need to multiply. Okay, now, I'll take this 1/3 and we'll multiply it by the total time. 6 3/4. But in order to do this multiplication, what are we going to have to do with that 6 3/4? Got to turn it into an improper fraction. Okay, and Mason, what's that improper fraction going to be? Say again? One more time. Yep, 6 times 4 gives me 24, plus 3 more gives me 27. So I have 1/3 times 27/4. Okay? Now I've got all fractions. Now I can multiply. Now we notice that they have the same sign. Okay, and since they have the same sign, that means our product's going to be positive. Okay, but we can multiply these fractions straight across. Okay, let's see, who haven't I heard much from? Chow, haven't heard much from you. 1 times 27? And what about 3 times 4? Okay, and guys, we're short on time, so I'm going to cut to the chase here. We can reduce that. Okay, we can divide numerator and denominator by 3, and we'll end up with 9/4. Now, what did we say about story problems? What do we have to do? 2 things we have to do. What's one of them? Yeah, you. Okay? I'm talking once we have our final solution. Okay, what do we have to do? We need to simplify. What else? We're going to need to make it a mixed number. And what else? Write a complete sentence. Okay, so we can say the total length of their brakes was. Then I've got to take that 9/4 and I need to turn it into a mixed number. Okay, and what's that mixed number going to be? 9/4. Go ahead. Very good. 2 and 1/4. So we can say 2 and 1/4 hours. Okay? Okay, so we read it 3 times very, very carefully, took out the important information, figured out what math we need to do with it. In order to multiply, we look to check, we check to see if they have same sign or different sign. That tells us positive or negative. Then we worry about the numbers, and we can multiply fractions straight across. Okay, we always want to simplify our final answers, and the only time we need to turn an improper fraction to a mixed number is if it's a story problem.